3 English phrases could get you a job, and 3 English phrases could lose it for you. Today, you are going to learn both. Welcome to episode 15 of English Listening Practice. This episode is the one many of you have been asking for since episode 1, and I am so glad it's finally here. We are going to a job interview, an interview at an English-speaking company, and by the time this video ends, you will know exactly what to say, how to say it, and, just as importantly, what never to say. Here's what's coming. 15 vocabulary words that every professional interview candidate needs. 3 conversations covering the most common and most difficult interview questions in English. 8 expert listening tips for understanding your interviewer. A dedicated section on the phrases that kill job applications. The salary conversation, because most learners have no idea how to handle that one. And 30 bonus phrases across 6 interview categories. This episode is shorter than usual. Every second counts, just like in a real interview. Let's go.
Fast round. 15 words. Say every one out loud after me. In a real interview, your vocabulary signals your level instantly. Proactive. Adjective. Taking action and control rather than reacting to events. I take a proactive approach to identifying problems before they escalate. Competency. Noun. A skill or ability needed to perform a job effectively. This role requires strong competencies in communication and data analysis. To liaise. Verb. To work together and communicate with others, especially between groups. In my last role, I regularly liaised with the marketing and finance teams. Stakeholder. Noun. Anyone with an interest or involvement in a project or organization. I'm comfortable presenting findings to stakeholders at all levels. Initiative. Noun. The ability to act independently and make decisions without being asked. I was commended for showing initiative during the product launch. Collaborate. Verb. To work jointly with others to achieve a goal. I thrive when I collaborate with cross-functional teams on complex projects. Measurable outcome. Phrase. A result that can be tracked and quantified with data. I always try to frame my achievements in terms of measurable outcomes. Prioritize. Verb. To decide the order in which tasks should be done based on importance. I'm skilled at prioritizing multiple deadlines without compromising quality. Adaptable. Adjective. Able to adjust to new conditions or changes easily. I'm highly adaptable. I've worked across 3 different sectors. To add value. Phrase. To improve something or make a meaningful contribution to a team. I want to understand how I can add value to your team from day one. Track record. Noun. A history of past achievements and results. I have a strong track record of delivering projects on time and on budget. Constructive feedback. Noun. Comments designed to help improve performance, not just criticism. I actively seek constructive feedback to improve my professional skills. Notice period. Noun. The time between resigning and leaving a job, usually in weeks. My current notice period is 4 weeks, but I can discuss flexibility. Aspiration. Noun. A hope or ambition for what you want to achieve in your career. My long-term aspiration is to move into a senior leadership role. To be a good fit. Phrase. To match well with the culture, team, or requirements of a role. Based on everything I've heard today, I believe I would be an excellent fit.
Every one of those words will appear in the conversations. Let's get into the interview room. Aisha is interviewing for a marketing manager role at a technology company in London. Her interviewer is Tom, the head of marketing. The first question is the one every interviewer asks and every candidate dreads. Listen carefully, especially to how Aisha structures her answer. Past, present, future. That structure works every time.
Good morning, Aisha. Thank you for coming in today. Let's get started. Could you begin by telling me a little about yourself?
Of course. Thank you for having me. So, I have 6 years of experience in digital marketing, working primarily in the technology and e-commerce sectors. I started my career as a content executive at a startup where I built the brand's social media presence from the ground up. From there, I moved into a more senior role as a campaign manager, where I led a team of 4 and was responsible for a monthly budget of around £80,000.
And what brought you to where you are now?
Great question. In my current role, I've developed strong competencies in data-led strategy and stakeholder management. I liaise daily with our product, sales, and leadership teams. But I've reached a point where I want to take on a larger scope of responsibility and make a more significant strategic impact. When I came across this role, it struck me as the natural next step, a company with a strong product, an ambitious team, and a clear vision for where it's going.
Why marketing specifically? What keeps you in this field?
Honestly, I love the combination of creativity and measurable outcomes. You can create something genuinely compelling and then see directly in the data whether it worked. That feedback loop is what makes marketing endlessly interesting to me. And in a sector that moves as quickly as technology, there's always something new to learn and adapt to.
That's a great answer. You mentioned measurable outcomes. Can you give me a specific example?
Absolutely. Last year, I led a product launch campaign for a B2B software tool. We set a target of 500 signups in the first 30 days. We hit 812, a 62% overperformance. That was achieved by combining targeted LinkedIn advertising with the thought leadership content series I developed over 8 weeks before the launch.
Impressive. And how would you describe your management style?
I describe myself as collaborative but outcome-focused. I strongly believe in giving team members ownership of their work and the space to show initiative. I think constructive feedback delivered regularly and specifically is what actually develops people, not annual reviews. My goal as a manager is to make my team better than they were when they joined me.
What makes this answer work? Structure. Past. 6 years, starting point. Present. Current role, current skills. Future. Why this role? Why now? Specificity. She names a budget, £80,000. A result, 62% overperformance. A number, 812 signups. Vocabulary. Competencies. Liaise. Stakeholder. Measurable outcomes. Show initiative. All from part 2. Tone. Confident and warm. She speaks about data and creativity, showing range.
The interview continues. Tom now moves into the classic strength and weakness questions, the ones that trip up almost every candidate. Notice how Aisha handles the weakness question in particular. She acknowledges a real weakness, explains what she has done about it, and turns it into a story of growth. This is the only structure that works for this question.
Let's talk about strengths. What would you say is your greatest professional strength?
I think my greatest strengths is my ability to translate complex data into clear, compelling narratives for different audiences. I've noticed that a lot of marketing teams produce excellent analysis, but struggle to communicate it in a way that gets buy-in from senior leadership. I've always been able to bridge that gap, and it has directly influenced budget decisions and strategic direction in every company I've worked in.
And what about a weakness? What would you say you're actively working to improve?
I'll be honest, I've historically found it difficult to delegate. When I feel responsible for an outcome, my instinct is to stay very hands-on, which isn't always the most effective approach when leading a team. I recognized this about 2 years ago when my manager gave me some very direct, constructive feedback about it. Since then, I've been intentional about giving my team full ownership of projects, defining the outcome clearly, and then stepping back. It's made my team stronger, and honestly, it's made me a better manager. It's still something I consciously work on, but I've come a long way.
That's a very self-aware answer.
Have you ever had a conflict with a colleague or a manager? How did you handle it?
Yes, and I think navigating those situations professionally is part of what makes a strong team. In a previous role, I had a significant disagreement with a colleague about the direction of a campaign. We had genuinely different visions for it. Rather than let it become personal, I requested a structured meeting with both of us and our manager present. I presented the data supporting my approach, listened carefully to their arguments, and we agreed on a version that actually incorporated the strongest elements of both ideas. The campaign ended up being one of the most successful we ran that year.
Good. One more in this section. Describe a time you had to adapt quickly to an unexpected change.
About 18 months ago, our biggest client unexpectedly pulled out of a partnership 3 days before a major campaign launch. The budget was cut by 40% overnight. I had 24 hours to rebuild the strategy with the resources we had left. I reprioritized the paid channels, brought forward some organic content we've been holding, and briefed my team on the revised scope that same evening. The launch went ahead on schedule. Results were lower than the original target, but above the revised benchmark. And the client, when they returned 6 months later, specifically cited how we'd handled that crisis as the reason they came back.
The weakness answer formula. Step 1. Name a real weakness, not "I work too hard." Interviewers hate that. Step 2. Say when and how you became aware of it, ideally through feedback. Step 3. Describe the specific steps you took to improve. Step 4. Show the result. How has it changed you? What to avoid: vague weaknesses, fake weaknesses, weaknesses that disqualify you for the role.
The final section of the interview. Tom asks the 2 questions that come near the end of almost every interview. Why do you want this job? And do you have any questions for us? The second question is one most candidates waste. Aisha does not. Listen to how she closes, and notice that she ends the interview asking 2 questions that make Tom think, not 2 questions that any website could answer.
We're coming toward the end. Let me ask you, why specifically us? Why this company?
Honestly, it comes down to 3 things. First, the product. I've used it myself and I believe in it. And I think it's much harder to market something you're not genuinely excited about. Second, the team's reputation. I've spoken to 2 people who have worked here previously and both described an environment that's ambitious but genuinely collaborative. That combination is harder to find than it sounds. Third, the timing. You're clearly at a growth inflection point, and I want to be part of building something, not just maintaining it.
That's very specific. I appreciate that. Now, do you have any questions for me?
I do, yes. The first one is this. In your experience, what separates the people who thrive here from the people who struggle?
That's a good question. I'd say it's people who are proactive rather than reactive, who don't wait to be told what to do and who are comfortable with ambiguity. We move fast and priorities shift.
That's really useful to know. Thank you. My second question is about the team I'd be joining. What's the biggest challenge they're currently facing that this hire is intended to help address?
Honestly, we've grown very quickly, and our strategy hasn't scaled as cleanly as the product has. There's a real need for someone to bring rigor and structure to the marketing function while also maintaining the creative energy that got us here.
That's exactly the kind of challenge I enjoy. I feel like I can genuinely add value there, and I'd be excited to be part of solving it.
Well, Aisha, I have to say, this has been one of the stronger interviews I've conducted for this role. We'll be in touch within the week.
Thank you so much, Tom. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm genuinely excited about this opportunity. I look forward to hearing from you.
Why Aisha's closing questions are outstanding. Question 1. What separates people who thrive from those who struggle? Forces the interviewer to reveal what the culture actually values, shows emotional intelligence. Question 2. What's the biggest challenge this hire is meant to address? Shows strategic thinking and gives Aisha a chance to align herself with the company's actual needs. What to never ask at the end: what does this company do? What is the salary? How many days holiday do I get? Always have 2 to 3 questions ready. Being unable to think of questions signals a lack of preparation. 8 tips specific to interview listening. Every one of these will help you understand what your interviewer is really asking, because sometimes the question they say and the question they mean are different things.
Tip 1. Listen for the question behind the question. Every interview question has a surface question and a real question underneath. Tell me about yourself really means, are you the right fit and can you communicate clearly? What's your weakness really means, are you self-aware and do you keep growing? Why do you want this job really means, will you stay and do you actually understand what we do? Train your ear to hear both layers. Tip 2. Behavioral questions always start the same way. Listen for these openers. Tell me about a time when, describe a situation where, can you give me an example of? Walk me through a time you. These are all behavioral questions. They want a specific story, not a general statement. The moment you hear any of these, start retrieving a real example from your memory. Do not give a hypothetical answer. Tip 3. Catch the evaluative words. Interviewers use specific words that tell you what they are evaluating. Effectively in a question means they care about results. Collaboratively means they care about teamwork. Under pressure means they're testing your resilience. Independently means they want to know you don't need handholding. Listen for the evaluative word in every question. It tells you what the correct emphasis of your answer should be. Tip 4. Silence after your answer is normal. In many cultures, silence in a conversation means something went wrong. In a British or American job interview, a brief silence after your answer often means the interviewer is making notes or processing what you said. Do not fill that silence by adding more, backtracking, or apologizing. Say what you have to say, and then stop.
Tip 5. Ask for clarification without losing confidence. If you don't understand a question, asking for clarification is not a weakness. It is a sign of professionalism. Use these phrases. Could you clarify what you mean by word? Just to make sure I'm answering the right thing, are you asking about X or Y? That's an interesting question. Could I just check, are you looking for a specific example or a more general overview? These phrases buy you thinking time and show that you communicate carefully. Tip 6. The two-part question. Interviewers often ask a question that has two parts, but because you're nervous, you may only hear the first part. Listen carefully for "and" in a question. Tell me about your experience and what you feel you still need to develop. That's two questions. Describe a challenge you faced and how you resolved it. Two questions. Make sure you answer both. If you've only answered one, the interviewer may gently remind you, but it's better to catch it yourself. Tip 7. The tone shift signal. A good interviewer will signal with their tone when the conversation is moving into a more challenging area. A slightly more formal tone, a pause before the question, or a phrase like, "Let me ask you something a bit more specific," or "I'd like to explore one area in more detail." These are signals that a harder question is coming. Hear them and adjust your mental focus before the question even arrives. Tip 8. Listen to what they tell you about the role. The best information in a job interview is not what you say. It is what the interviewer reveals about the company, the team, and the challenge they're hiring for. Listen carefully when they describe the role, the culture, or the problems they face. This information is gold. It tells you what they actually need, and it gives you material for your closing questions and your follow-up.
This is the section most courses skip. Knowing what to say is half the battle. Knowing what never to say is the other half. Every phrase below has ended a real interview. Study them, laugh at them, and never use them. Never say, "My last boss was terrible. We didn't get along at all." Say instead, "My previous role taught me a lot about communication styles and how to navigate different working approaches." Never criticize a former employer, ever. It makes you look disloyal and difficult, regardless of whether it was true. Never say, "I don't really have any weaknesses." Say instead, "I'm still developing," genuine skill. "Here's what I've been doing about it." This is the single most disqualifying answer in a job interview. It signals zero self-awareness. Never say, "I'm a perfectionist. I just care too much." Say instead, "I've historically struggled with delegating. Here's how I've worked on it." Interviewers have heard perfectionist and "I care too much" thousands of times. It reads as dishonest. Never say, "I just need this job for the money right now." Say instead, I'm excited about this role specifically because, genuine reason tied to their company. Motivation matters enormously to hiring managers. This answer tells them you'll leave the moment something better appears. Never say, I don't have any questions for you. Say instead, yes, I'd love to ask, what separates the people who thrive here from those who struggle? Having no questions signals a lack of preparation and genuine interest. It often loses candidates who are otherwise strong. There are more, but those 5 will serve as a reminder of the principle. Everything you say in an interview should demonstrate self-awareness, professionalism, and genuine interest in this specific role. Never say anything that could make the interviewer doubt any of those 3 things.
Nobody teaches you this. Most learners either name a number too low, leaving money on the table, or too high, taking themselves out of consideration. This part gives you the exact language for every salary situation in English. First, an important principle. Whoever names a number first is at a disadvantage. Your goal is always to either let them name a number first or to give a range that's anchored high enough to leave room for negotiation. Here's how to do that in English. Scenario. They ask, what are your salary expectations? Response. Based on my research and the scope of this role, I'm looking for something in the region of X pounds to Y pounds. I'd love to understand more about the full package before settling on a specific figure, though. Give a range, not a number. Anchor it 10 to 15% above your minimum. Always leave the door open to discuss the full package. Scenario. They say, our budget for this role is X pounds. Is that acceptable? That's helpful to know. I was hoping for something slightly higher given my experience and track record. Is there flexibility on the base, or is there room to discuss the wider package? Never immediately accept the first number. Always test for flexibility, politely and without confrontation. Scenario. They ask first, what are you currently earning? Response. I'd rather not anchor the conversation to my current salary. This is a different role with a different scope. I'm genuinely more interested in understanding what this role is worth to you. You are under no obligation to reveal your current salary. Redirecting is perfectly professional in British and American interview culture. Scenario. You're happy with the offer, but want to seem measured. Response. That's within the range I had in mind. I'd like a day to review the full package before I formally accept. I'm sure that's understandable. Never accept on the spot, even if you're delighted. Taking time shows professionalism and gives you a chance to reread the contract. Salary conversations are uncomfortable in any language. In English, the key is to stay calm, frame everything as collaborative rather than confrontational, and always leave both parties feeling like reasonable professionals. These phrases do exactly that.
30 phrases, 6 categories. Read every one out loud. Interview confidence is built through rehearsal, not just knowledge. Opening the interview. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Warm and professional signals genuine preparation and enthusiasm. I've done quite a bit of research into the company, and I'm really excited about what I found. Signals preparation without sounding rehearsed. Before we get started, I just want to say how much I appreciate the opportunity. Short, genuine, and sets a positive tone from the first moment. Talking about your experience. In my previous role, I was responsible for X, which gave me strong experience in Y. Clean, specific structure for describing past experience. I have a strong track record of achievement, most recently demonstrated by example. Uses the vocabulary word and immediately backs it up with evidence. One of my proudest professional achievements was X. The outcome was specific result. Always pair achievements with measurable outcomes. I was recognized for contribution by who, which I was particularly proud of. External validation makes a claim far more credible. Handling difficult questions. That's a great question. Let me think about the best example for a moment. Buys thinking time without sounding evasive, very natural in English. I want to be honest about this because I think self-awareness is important. Excellent opener for weakness or failure questions. Looking back, I would have approached it differently. Here's what I learned. Turns a failure question into a growth story. I'd rather give you a specific example than a general answer. Is that okay? Shows precision and willingness to engage substantively.
Showing enthusiasm and fit. What really attracted me to this role specifically was genuine reason. Specificity here is everything. Vague enthusiasm is unconvincing. I believe I would be a genuine addition to this team because specific reason. Confident without being arrogant. Frames contribution, not personal glory. The culture you've described resonates strongly with how I worked best. Connects their culture description to your working style. I'm proactive by nature. I don't wait to be told what needs to be done. Uses the vocabulary word and demonstrates it as a natural quality. Asking for clarification. Just to make sure I'm answering the right thing, are you asking about X or Y? Professional, precise, and buys thinking time simultaneously. Could you give me just a moment to think of the best example for that? Pausing to think is a sign of quality. Never rush an answer. I want to answer that thoroughly. Would you mind if I took a brief second? Same principle. Shows you take the question seriously. That's quite a broad question. Could I ask which aspect you'd most like me to address? Advanced shows analytical thinking. Closing the interview. Is there anything in my application or what I've said today that gives you any hesitation? The boldest closing question invites objections so you can address them. I'm genuinely excited about this opportunity. I feel it's the right fit on both sides. Confident, direct, and leaves a strong final impression. What are the next steps in the process and when might I expect to hear from you? Professional and practical shows you're serious without being pushy. Thank you for such a thorough and engaging conversation. I've learned a lot today. Gracious, genuine, and memorable as a final line.
And that is episode 15, At a Job Interview. You now have 15 professional vocabulary words. You've heard a complete job interview across 3 conversations, from the opening question to the salary conversation. You have 8 listening tips that help you understand what's really being asked. You know the 5 phrases that end interviews immediately. You know how to handle the salary question in 4 different situations. And you have 30 bonus phrases across 6 interview categories. Here is your challenge this week. Record yourself answering 3 questions. Tell me about yourself. What is your greatest weakness? And why do you want this job? Use today's vocabulary and structure. Play it back. It will feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is growth. Every interview you practice out loud is one you'll be more ready for when it matters. Comment below with the one phrase from today you're going to use in your next interview. One phrase. That commitment makes it real. Episode 16 is coming. Here's your teaser. Picture a dinner table, a work social, or a networking event full of people you've just met, speaking in fast, natural English. You need to make conversation, hold your own, and leave a strong impression. Next week, social English, small talk, networking, and making friends. It's going to be lighter than today, funnier than today, and packed with the kind of English that school never taught you. Prepare, practice, walk in with confidence. The job is yours to win.